Yeah, we can see that both of those are Players' Cup champions. Azul in 2021 and Zach in 2020, the Players' Cup 2 and 3. They've got a lot of other achievements as well, and like we said with their decks, we've got Shadow Rider against Ice Rider, Alchemy against Inteleon. This is one which is going to be interesting. These are the two big new VMAXs from Chilling Reign. So Joe, how do you see this one going as we head on into the game? Tell us what we need to be looking out for.
I think it's a relatively balanced matchup. Zach is playing 4 copies of Path of the Peak, and that obviously does shut down Azul's use of Underworld Door, his Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX's main selling point, really. So how the Stadium War goes is going to be a really important factor here. Of course, going first can be a big deal as well, if we can get some early Horror House potential plays going on, or if we can see some early knockouts from the Ice Rider. I think that's really how the tempo dictates this matchup.
Absolutely. And we saw the Ice Rider decks yesterday because obviously Henry is playing this deck as well, or at least a similar version thereof. And the turn 1 is really, really important. So we see Zach here, he's got a level ball. That's going to go and get him presumably a Sobble to go and bench. And he's got another quick ball in hand. He's got the Ice Rider Calyrex. He's got the Water Energy to attach. He's actually got a Marnie for next turn and a Melanie, which he can choose between. And this is good. Zach needs to start getting those Inteleon, those Sobble that turn into Inteleon set up, because that's going to give him his engine to go through the game. And you need 2 energy on the Ice Rider Calyrex to really start pushing that pressure early.
Yeah, I think this is an excellent start for Zach, who is just simply going through his prize cards, making sure that he is fully aware of what he has access to. He's actually prized a number of his Marnies. I think he has 1 in hand and 1 remaining in the deck, so a couple of those prized for him. Air Balloon just is one of that he does have access to. I think a few things that you do want to bear in mind, it's things like the Great Catcher that we know is in hand, and a few other cards that he has, like the Scoop Up Net, which is a one of, the Reset Stamp. These are all things to keep track of, but ultimately, I'd like to see the Quick Ball still get played here. Because you have to be prepared for Horror House. Now, Horror House isn't always the best route to go for if you're from Azul's perspective, because it has such low hit points. It's an easy 3-prize like KO. But if Zach just leaves 1 Ice Rider in the active, there can be big plays where you Horror House and then combo into the Poltergeist. So Zach is opening himself up for this right now by going for the second Sobble. A little bit of a risk. We'll see if Azul can sort of pounce on that play. Right now, though, just going to go ahead and fire off the money. Doesn't even want to air balloon his Crobat. Just wants the fresh hand here. He does get himself Gengar, but not much else to work with. Just a bunch of energies.
No, and had he played the air balloon onto the Crobat, there would be an option to Horror House here, but with no switching cards, just literally a couple of bench Pokemon and attachment, and just passes straight back over to Zach here.
This is pretty okay from Zach. He may have to go for a supporter that isn't Melanie here, because you can obviously Drizzle and just grab your Evo Incense off of your Shady Dealings, or you could go ahead and look for a supporter card, something like a Professor's Research, which he plays 1 copy of. You really don't want to play Marnie when Azul did so little. So it depends if he wants to go for a guaranteed play here. Somewhat of a halfway house is using his Quick Ball in hand and then still using a Melanie. Then you have 3 draws to try and hit any of your other Drizzile, Level Ball, or the Physical Incense, of which he plays 4 copies. So he's got a bit of a decision on his hands whether or not he wants to really overcommit his attachments here. So it's a tough decision. You can play safe and just go for a research, but getting that additional attachment could really benefit him in the upcoming turns.
Absolutely. I mean, Zach's had a nice start here, and he's starting to get his Inteleon line rolling, and that's just going to give him the fuel as he goes through the game. It looks like he's eyeing up Melanie and Professor's Research here. But, I mean, if you're Zach, really what you want to do here is just try and get an attack. I mean, there's a potential here to take a quick KO on that Crobat and really put yourself in a good position moving forward early in the game. We've even got a third Sobble going down, and Melanie does come down to attach the energy, so we draw 3 cards, and there is an Evolution Incense. So if Zach wants to get the KO here by getting that VMAX, that will be an option.
Yeah, he's also opened up the Glacial Lance, I think it is, the second attack on the Calyrex V here. So he could just remain as a 2-prize Pokemon if he wants to, rather than committing into that active position. It depends if he wants to, be threatening a Max Lance next turn. And that seems to be what he's going for. It doesn't play around Gengar perfectly, because you still have to discard 2 if you actually go for the attack here. Let's see how else he wants to play this hand. He doesn't really have many options unless he does do a discard here. Maybe just discarding 1 attachment is the right play to open up Melanie for yourself next turn. that's the best way to play around Gengar, I think.
Absolutely. Of course, when you attack with Ice Rider Calyrex, when you use that Max Lance, you have a choice to discard 0, 1, or 2 energy. Zac does discard both the energy to do the full 250, gets the KO, takes those first 2 prizes. But like you say, Joe, Horror House will stop Zac playing any cards next turn. So if we do see that coming out, and that's looking pretty likely at this stage, it means we are not going to see an attack from Zac next turn.
Yeah, Azul has no option. He has to go for the Horror House GX here. Zac is forced to pass. There's literally no actions he can do. He's left himself with no attacking option here whatsoever. So he just is at the mercy of Azul here for a turn at least, where Azul finally has a hand to work with and can begin using Underworld Doors here. The Gengar won't be taking a knockout on the Ice Rider right now, but Azul could still be looking for things like Boss's Orders to find prizes in other means, and he actually does pick up the Boss's Orders option. And he's also found himself potentially a couple more Shadow Riders, which is really nice development for him.
Absolutely. Azul doesn't know this like we do, but we know there are actually 5 trainer cards in hand. So that's... Oh, and he does go for it. He does use the attack. So 250 damage. It's not a KO. It's pretty close. Although Zac does have an option here to literally just attach and get a KO for 3 prizes.
Yeah, and Melanie as well. So he's pretty much set himself up, even though Azul is clutching onto that reset stamp. I think Zac still has a good amount of outs and won't be too phased by going down to 1 prize card. Azul's kind of allowing this to happen, and I'm a little bit surprised by this Inteleon being played from Zac. We'll see what he wants to pick out, because I feel like you want to keep your outs open if you are going to take the 3 prizes this turn. I'm not sure what else improves your board state here.
No, I was going to make exactly the same point. If you've got a Sobble and a Drizzile on the bench, you draw a Drizzile or a way to get one, that's an out. You draw an Inteleon or a way to get one, that's an out. It gives you more outs. Now, Zac can find himself a Drizzile next turn, and that would give him a new trainer card and get him rolling. But now if he draws an Inteleon, that's not going to give him an out because there's no Drizzile to evolve it into. So... I mean, he potentially could evolve the bench Sobble and then bench a Sobble. It's a lot to ask, but maybe he could still set up his outs that way, but that's a lot more awkward.
Yeah, I think this is really just showing how much Zac enjoys part of the peak in his list. It's very much a focal point of his deck, where you are trying to disrupt your opponent and shut off those abilities, which admittedly Azul is very reliant on here, as we do see the Melanie coming down. Zac can actually pick up the level ball, but he may want to continue to keep it as Drizzile outs for next turn, because I think you have to expect a reset stamp here. I don't mind playing at least one of the Capacious Buckets. Playing the second one opens you up again, so Drizzile won't be able to search out energy cards. But I'm pretty sure we'll be seeing Zac take a knockout here. You may even fire off your reset stamp just so that you don't draw it off of Azul's reset stamp.
That is definitely an option. I mean, there are cards you can play there. That Air Balloon could hit the field if you weren't too worried about having to retreat the Inteleon, that I don't think Azul's really going to be going after here. That's not really the route to victory. You're going after the VMAXs. So there are some things Zac could do. We might see another Capacious Bucket. Does seem to be changing his mind on that one. I mean, like you say, at this stage, Zac knows that if there is any chance of a reset stamp coming down, it's going to come down. We do see a Drizzile being searched here, though. So
yeah, no more Sobbles. Yeah.
No.
It feels like a bit of a wasted level ball there, because it does slightly hurt his outs. Same for the bucket, really, now. You've shut off Shady Dealings being a way to find energy for you next turn, which is going to be a really important piece, especially if you are stamped down to 1. So a couple surprising cards to be played here. I feel like the best cards to play are the Reset Stamp, the Air Balloon, and the Calyrex V. Those seem like the no-brainers to me if you are trying to play around Reset Stamp. But perhaps Zac is just holding on to what he thinks are the cards to see him over the line here.
Absolutely. We do see that Max Lance coming down again with a full effect. And like you say, that 240 HP on the Mimikyu and Gengar is absolutely relevant here, because it means that you can get the KO, you know, as an Ice Rider player, and usually those tag teams are just slightly out of reach, especially for a deck like Zac's that does not play the Inteleon that can ping for a little bit of damage with the ability. So Azul here plays a Fog Crystal, goes and grabs a Marshadow. That obviously is crucial for getting rid of Path to the Peak and turning on abilities. But at this stage, is Azul just too far behind?
Well, he has Reset Stamp and he has Trevenant Dust Noir, so I think this could be an easy way to come back into the game where you try and find an Air Balloon this turn, try and take the knockout and remove all of your opponent's cards, making Zach literally have to top deck his way to victory. So as long as he can dig into a draw supporter here, he has good odds of still going for this Trevenant Dust Noir play. You still have that Fog Crystal, so you can evolve up and use your second Underworld Door before making any other decision here. I'm pretty sure he may be thinking of putting exactly Crobat back into his deck. Okay, so maybe Crobat plus the Psychic Energy. He's still respecting the value of Marshadow here with Resetting Hole, because really you have two draws here. I'm a little bit surprised by both Psychics going straight back into the deck because of how important these two draws are here. We'll see how it goes though. Let's see a draw supporter.
And
okay,
it is a draw supporter.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah, that's a really good draw. Now you can Fog Crystal attach to your Trevenant Dust Noir, fire off the Reset Stamp, and play the research here. I'm pretty sure you're always going for Psychic Energy, even with your outs. Azul may value something like an Alcremie being a finisher instead, where you give yourself a 2-turn clock to win, where you say Trevenant buys me a turn, exactly 1 turn, and I can whisk my way to victory. So I do like this line as well.
Yeah, I like Alcremie. I think that is one of the cards that really does give this deck an extra dimension. You can get giant one-hit KOs with Shadow Rider Calyrex, you just need an awful lot of energy to do so. Alcremie doesn't keep the energy, it discards it in order to do the damage, but it gives you such high damage output so much more easily than other cards and other decks. And Pokemon VMAXs generally do not one-hit KO each other. It's usually a bit of a 2-hit KO race, but Alcremie really turns that on its head, and we've seen already multiple times in this tournament that Alcremie VMAX taking that one big KO at the end of the game, and with us all being as behind as he is, I really like this. You can get the KO with Trevenant and Dust Noir, so get the KO with that. Give Zach a 0-card hand. That was a great top deck from Zach off the Reset Stamp, but I don't think it's going to matter.
Don't think it's enough. No, certainly not to knock out the Trevenant Dust Noir. He'd have to combine it with drawing a Water Energy for turn here if he is actually going to close out the victory. And obviously that goes straight back into the deck. So I don't think there's any one card combination that simply wins Zach the game right now. So Azul set himself up in really good stead and finds his Alcremie VMAX. It was in the prize cards. So Azul takes the 50-50 to hopefully whisk for the win.
Oh, Evolution Incense is nice. It will get a Drizzile, and that will get Zach a trainer of his choice. And essentially, right, when you're in this position, when you literally are relying only on your top deck, having a choice of any trainer from your deck is basically the best you can ever hope for. Is the Professor's Research still in his deck, or has he played that one already?
I'm not too sure, but I think you have to be intimidated by Azul's hand. I think Marnie's the safest play, even with the Research in there. I think you have to respect that option. If you can also find a Path to the Peak from this Marnie, you're still fairly comfortable. You can just ride of the High King, set up the VMAX, and hope that you can draw into more incenses for that last Inteleon to find boss's orders. So Zach actually gets exactly what he wants. He gets the energy attachment, he gets the Path to the Peak, and he can just ride of the High King here.
Absolutely. Max Lance will be 20 damage short of a KO, and then at that stage you're looking for... I mean, you could do it with an Ice Rider Calyrex V and an Energy and the switching card, and it's way too much. It's more than you need. That was a good way. It's brought Trevenant and Dust Noir into KO range, and that's all Zach could really do that turn. But now it's over to Azul. If we can see a big enough... obviously the Marshadow, and this is why it got Ordinary Rotted back into the deck. A big enough turn here... And Azul is going to draw a lot of cards.
Wow. He is drawing cards, all right. He's already got communication for the Alcremie. I think we're there, you know.
And he draws it off the draws anyway. Doesn't even need communication. That's going to be enough energy, right? That's free. No, that's not.
He can Underworld Door. Yeah, he can Underworld Door one more time if he needs to. Yeah, I think we're there anyway. Only the one retreat cost on the Trevenant Dust Noir thanks to the Air Balloon. So Azul with a really big knockout. I really like his path there. He looked very far behind, but one stamp Trevenant Dust Noir play and setting up that Alcremie, even with the card in the prizes, Azul knows that this is the only way that I can win over 2 turns and keep Zach away from his Max Lance plus boss combination. So very nicely pieced together from Azul there at the end.
I mean, the last couple of turns from Azul were absolutely perfect. And Zach drew really well. Like, of a reset stamp to 0, that is about the best Zach could ever have hoped for. Got the path to the peak, got the energy, got the attack, but that 2-turn combination from Azul got the 2 KOs while disrupting Zach as much as possible. And, you know, little things like playing the Ordinary Rod to get the Marshadow back in. You said yourself it meant that the draws off Underworld Door were a little bit riskier. But we saw then that Marshadow getting rid of Path to the Peak on the final turn was huge. Setting up that Alcremie to get that big one-hit KO. Azul knew he couldn't mess around. There was not going to be a 2-hit KO on that second Ice Rider Calyrex. It was Alcremie or bust. So even with it being in the prizes, had to be the way to go. So let's head on over into Game 2 then. Azul is 1 game away from carrying on through the losers bracket. And Zach is 1 game away from having his tournament ended.
Yeah, it's not all lost yet for Zach. Of course, he can be the player going first here and starting to put the pressure on. We did see how Azul was able to piece together his comeback mechanic cards. He plays 1 Trevenant Dust Noir, 1 Reset Stamp, and was able to have them in hand at the right moment and was, as you said, able to piece together the Alcremie. So, although it all went to plan for Azul there, it's not going to happen every single time. And Zach, his hand is looking quite bad right now. He's going to need some help from the likes of Level Ball or Drizzile. Sobble, to really improve this hand. At least he finds another basic. He can attach and path, and he's representing pressure here, but not much else. I still like the incense, incidentally, here, because it then opens up more top decks to be better. You don't want to draw into another Ice Rider VMAX here, ever. So you want to take it out of the deck, I think.
Yeah, I agree entirely. When you're drawing this badly, one of the things you need to do is just increase the odds. Even though it's only tiny percentages, you increase the odds of drawing. And if you play the Evolution Incense, you take a VMAX out of your deck, and that is 1 fewer bad top deck that you can have. Having said that, next turn, Zach is still on course to get a big attack with Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX, so could still get the first KO. Probably will still get the first KO.
Yeah, and Azul is going to go ahead and grab his Gengar and Mimikyu once again. His hand is fairly bad, so he may even hold off on the Horror House GX until the following turn to try and get maximum value. It does come with its risks, though. Azul may just air balloon into his Alcremie and have it as a sacrificial lamb this turn if he is just going to attach and essentially pass afterwards. The only good news for Azul is if Zach does go chasing any Pokemon, it will force discards from Max Lance, so Horror House always buys you that time.
Absolutely, and we do look like we are going to see, just the Alcremie put into the active there. It's really not what you want to do. We've seen the value that can have late in the game, but Ordinary Rod could always get it back, and the other Pokemon are just a little bit more important. I feel bad for Alcremie, but it is the least important Pokemon on Azul's bench right now.
And now we are going to see Zach go ahead and grab his Ice Rider VMAX with the Evolution Incense. He didn't draw anything helpful, unfortunately. Just one of his Inteleon line, but not the Sobble, unfortunately. He may try and go patient with Rider the High King and just say that even if he gets Horror Housed, he can always take a 3-prize KO, which is much more value than taking this 2-prizer out. It actually helps Azul in his approach of trying to use that Reset Stamp Trevenant Dust Noir combo. As we are going to see him take his time and look for his prize cards. Of course, this is always a really important thing to do. And it's very easy when you're playing on PTCGO. They're all stacked up nicely for you. It's a lot less chaotic than IRL. So it can be much less laborious in these online tournaments. And Zach is obviously taking his time here to make sure he knows exactly what he has access to here.
Yeah, in real life, when you're looking through your deck, it's a lot more awkward. And I mean, the amount of games when I've looked through my prizes and been like, looked through my deck and been like, man, that card I want is prize. And then I draw it 2 turns later because I just didn't do a good job looking through my deck. I don't know if I'm the only one that does that, but I shouldn't probably admit to it.
I feel like definitely just using Rider the High King is the best option here. You may even throw the Leon at it just to make the damage that little bit more relevant. I feel like this is the right play from Zach. You just send in the Rider the High King, keep those energies around to try and punish Azul's Horror House next turn.
Yeah, I think that's always a good shot. I mean, that Leon can be impactful. You know, Leon could get a 1-hit KO on a Trevenant and Dust Noir, for instance, at a key point in the game. So there are reasons to keep it, but like you say, get a bit of extra damage here. Zach set himself up as well as he can with the hand he's had, but now we see, stop me if you've heard this one this weekend, Horror House GX, which... that has helped Zach quite a bit because there aren't many item cards in his hand, but or trainer cards, but the ones that are there are Path to the Peak, and he's finally got some of that Intelli Online rolling.
Yeah, Zach can't play any of his cards, but he already set himself up for a KO next turn, so Azul used the Horror House knowing full well that he was sacrificing 3 prizes in order to do so. Let's be honest, he only had Psychic Energies to use, so he basically was forced into this GX attack, and Zach is once again going to go quite far ahead in this prize race, with Azul really having to work things out here and build up a board all over again.
Absolutely, and now Zach does have just a boatload of trainers in his hand, but unfortunately, there's no Gengar and Mimikyu to actually take advantage of it, which is a little bit sad, but Azul can use an Evolution Incense, go and grab his Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX here, and again, taking a good look through his his deck, trying to figure out what's prized, what's available, trying to plot out the next couple of turns and see if he can get back into it. We did see a big comeback from Azul last game, but we don't have an Alcremie V. I believe he only plays the 1. Oh, we do, but it's heavily damaged. So
it's damaged.
It's less of a good option. You can only VMAX it when you're about to attack, or else Zach has an easy 3 prizes to win the game. So it's not going to be as easy for Azul this game as it was last game. But then again, Zach's setup is a lot worse this game than it was last game.
I know we have Caster Vision, but I think Mewtwo is probably the best choice Azul can go for here. Obviously, we know how many items are in the hand, so it's an easy call from us. But Azul, the only way he attacks is if he uses Underworld Door turn attached to Mewtwo. Otherwise, he's having a turn off attacking again. So, you know, the Mewtwo with only 250 hit points, and now he's seen a Leon. Maybe he's a little bit afraid of Zach potentially having something like an Eldegoss in his deck. So isn't going to go down this route, and is going to take another turn off of attacking here, just to try and build up his board and get some more Shadow Riders into play.
Absolutely. We do see the Marnie. I mean, Zach had an 11-card hand, if I'm counting that correctly, so there's always a decent chance at that stage. And like you say, although Mimikyu and Gengar's gone, like you say, that Mewtwo and Mew can copy it in the discard pile, get that same attack. It wasn't a turn off of attacking, but it wasn't a particularly good attack.
The 10 damage is relevant, though, because it actually means that you only need 10 energy in play to knock out with a Shadow Rider. So it is a relevant prod. And the good news is Azul combined his turn with a Marnie, and Zach was not able to have Melanie in his opening hand, still not developed a Sobble yet, and I imagine that will be the use of his Quick Ball here. So it means that Zach actually now has to take a turn chilling and can't do anything in terms of damaging Azul's board at this stage.
No, and only needs an energy, but does not have an energy. Can't use Melanie after a Marnie, so there's no energy coming down here. So like you say, Zach's done the big attack, and that's one of the downsides of Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX. It only has 2 energy attacks, which means after you attack and discard the energy, you have to use Melanie. There's other cards around. Frostlass and Frostmoth could also be used. They're not in Zach's deck, but they are options. But you need some way to get that second energy, or else you're attacking every other turn. And that is not what the deck is meant to do. Half of the point of playing the Sobble line is so you can draw into those Melanies consistently. But if you don't have that Sobble line established, it's all a moot point.
Azul can start to churn through his deck a little bit more now. He's got a couple Fog Crystals. So far, only one Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX, but he can switch immediately into it and start Underworld Dooring to this benched Shadow Rider. And he does pick up that second VMAX. I feel like it's certainly a decent option here. You are a little bit concerned about, you know, allowing so many of your 3 prizes just having damage all over the place. But as we know, Zach can't use Melanie and Boss in the same turn. So this is one of the best ways that you can navigate around an Ice Rider, because they are limited with their discards, etc. So if you just go into this VMAX and keep your board limited, you can even keep yourself out of range of a potential Boss Max Lance kind of play.
Absolutely, it's an excellent point. You know, you are very reliant on Melanie. It's not always a great thing. We do see Fog Crystal getting another Shadow Rider Calyrex V. We saw yesterday, and we're going to see a bunch today. These Shadow Rider Calyrex players really want to stack Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX. They don't want 1, they want 3, maybe even 4 if you're getting a little bit greedy, although most don't play a 4/4 line. So that you can use that Underworld Door and attach lots of energy while drawing lots of cards. And that makes a huge difference throughout the course of the game. It gives you a huge advantage.
Absolutely, and Azul is kind of agonizing over putting this second 3 prizer into play, but I think it's certainly right for his prize map. You have to get aggressive into the Ice Rider at this stage. I still feel like now that he's picked up Reset Stamp, that's a really good deal for him. It may be something that he looks for in the future turn here. He's actually going to get rid of his Mewtwo. Now, he does play Ornery Rod, so it's not lights out for that card, but he's going to try and reestablish some additional cards here because he knows he doesn't really want to Marnie too much, and he does pick up after the peak. That's not too helpful. I don't think there's actually much you want to do here outside of maybe a manual attachment, and you just send in your benched Shadow Rider here to get a decent amount of setup damage onto this Ice Rider.
I agree. You're not going to be getting a big KO here, unfortunately, but you do have 5 energy on the field, so Max Geist will come in, and it will do a sizable chunk of damage. You know, you're sitting there, you're hitting for 160, with the 10 on is 170, so you're just over halfway to a KO. It's not insignificant, but your free prize is down and not taking a KO. That is not where Azul wants to be.
And if you're Zach here, do you choose Melanie over any other option here, or do you just go using Bucket and just go ahead and research? Guarantee your attachment and just swing into the Ice Rider. Looks like he is valuing the Melanie here. It's going to go ahead and get an additional energy onto most likely his active and then draw only 3 cards. He's really hoping to find a turn attachment, and he's looking to find possibly some more Sobble here. So it's a big 3 for him.
Oh, it hits the energy, and like you say, that is big, because if you whiff the energy of Melanie there, then you've attached an energy, but you've missed your turn attachment, they cancel out, and you've basically just played Hop and drawn 3 cards. And nobody plays Hop. Hop's lovely. No. Great character in the games. Not a good supporter card. It's underpowered. Drawing 3 is not good enough. So that was a risk from Zach. But now that it's paid off, love the play.
Yeah, and with the Evolution Incense in hand, he's setting up 1 Shady Dealings to get him Capacious Bucket and Boss's Orders to finish off this now damaged Shadow Rider. So Azul has to do something to disrupt this hand. He can only reset stamp to 3 cards, but you at least need to make Zach shuffle because right now he's sitting on game.
Yeah, and that's what I like so much about the play for Melody now that it's paid off, is the fact that you now need turn attachment, Boss's Orders for the win. You don't need Melanie and Boss in the same turn, which you know you're not going to get most of the time. So this works beautifully. Zach has got an excellent chance here, and it's Boss or Inteleon or Evolution Incense. There are plenty of outs in Zach's deck. So, like you say, you know, recess stamp to 3, it's probably coming down, but that's not what you're really looking for. You know, that does not give the best odds.
No, and Azul's going to try and do the same thing he did in that first game. He's going to say, I can finish off this Ice Rider, and then I've got Whisk for victory. That's pretty much what he's hoping for. A reset stamp to 3 is far less dangerous than the 1 card that it was last time. It's still working out for him right now, though. And he is actually going to go ahead and play the Professor's Research to reset here. He still has a couple more. He has 1 more Underworld Door. He's lacking a switching card right now, which is awkward for him.
Yeah,
that's going to grab back Marshadow and a couple energies here.
Yeah, Marshadow, of course, being crucial for that path to the peak, as we've already seen. So we do have 1 more Underworld Door. Hopefully that'll give some kind of switching card so you don't have to lose any energy. No.
That's a rough break. He only has 5 cards remaining in his deck. He has committed both of his Air Balloon. I'm not sure how many switches he's played just yet, but he does play 2 copies. Fortunately, there's still enough in play for you to make this retreat, and it actually doesn't change too much in the long run. His map is the same. He's taken his 3 prizes and says, Zach, do you have essentially exactly Boss plus energy? Otherwise, Azul can take the game all over again.
Yeah, and it is literally down to that. And at the moment, Zach does not have it, but he draws Boss off the top deck. So he attaches an energy, uses Boss's Orders on either of those free prize Pokemon, it doesn't matter, and uses Max Plant for an improbable victory, just taking that Boss's Orders off the top deck and evening it up 1 game each.
And for context, Zach plays 2 copies of Boss's Orders, and he had about 31 cards in his deck, something like that. He was far more likely to get the Inteleon, where he has a bunch of Incenses and the 2 copies, let's be fair. But still, that is a huge top deck for Zach, keeping him in this tournament right now.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. It's not just keeping him in the match; it's keeping him in the tournament. He's down 1, who was down a game in the losers bracket. That would have been it out of the tournament. He needed Boss energy to keep alive. He had the energy in hand. The odds were not great, but we've all had those ridiculous things, good and bad. So Zach keeps into the tournament. Let's just go straight into game 3 here. That was an absolute nail-biter at the end. I like this matchup. Both games so far, it's been pretty close. Either player could have taken either game here. So this is a fun series.
Yeah, we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of Reset Stamp. So many people clutch onto this card saying it's such a game winner. It's such a way to claw back when your opponent does fly ahead in that prize race. And it certainly is, but there are those situations where you just head slap and say, did I really stamp this guy into the exact cards? And in this case, it was good enough for Zach to get the job done here. As Azul can fire off a quick ball. He can throw away the Gengar Mimikyu, which is actually a really nice discard for him. Turn 1, because he'd much rather use a Mewtwo than a Gengar, because it has that additional 30 hit points, which means it's not just toast after using the Horror House GX. So nice to get that in the discard pile early. He still has that option for Horror House now sort of banked for him, as he can develop his first Shadow Rider V here.
Absolutely. No, if you're going to use Mewtwo and Mew, you've got to really have your Marshadow down, because, of course, Path to the Peak is going to turn off Mewtwo's ability and leave it as a pretty inept Pokemon, to be a little bit blunt and a little bit mean to it. So you've got to have an answer to Path to the Peak. As it stands, Azul, it's got Alchemy in the active. It's got Shadow Rider on the bench with an energy. It's not an amazing turn 1, but as far as it goes, it's not bad.
Yeah, he's not left with no options. He at least can evolve up and research next turn. Zach has got a great hand. He's got a ton of ball search, so I'm really happy to see this. Well, he certainly is. And yeah, I think you just go for it. You go double Sobble. You probably even quick ball away the Path. I know the Path to the Peak is a super strong card in this matchup, but I think I value the Incense that little bit more right now. And yeah, I think you just attach return and swing for 40. Not super relevant, but again, with the Leon in the mix, it could actually be a way for you to deal with an Alchemy VMAX later down the line. So yeah, I think it's a good start from Zach, where he can get a lot more Sobbles down, something that he wasn't able to do last game.
Absolutely, and this is phenomenal. I mean, could basically end the turn with 2 Sobble, 2 Ice Rider, the attachment, and like you say, you've got that. He's got Drizzile in hand. He's got an Evolution Incense. So the only thing Zach is going to need to get that big attack off turn 2 is going to be an energy, but he is going to have access to a Drizzile to get a Capacious Bucket to get the energy. So this is pretty much everything Zach wants at this stage. Going to need a supporter at some point, but can literally double Drizzile next turn. He's got the hand to do so if he wishes, although that would mean not using the Evolution Incense for a VMAX. But either way, Zach has got a handful of options, and that is all he really wants right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see if he actually values this path. He may also get rid of the Evo Incense, but I think it's such a valuable card that I think he just sacrificed the path here. Yeah, he actually does go for the Incense. It was basically between those two options. It makes it that little bit harder for him to get his ideal turn too, but he's just trying to throw a spanner in the works to Azul here.
Absolutely. And the thing is, you've got that Drizzile, which can go and get a supporter card, and doesn't need a Melanie next turn, can just use a manual attachment. And we know that Azul, well, we kind of assumed anyway, was going to get that Shadow Rider Calyrex, so now Path to the Peak is there. That's turning off these Underworld doors. Unfortunately, though, we see 2 Fog Crystal and a Pokemon Communication. If Azul wants Marshadow, got a couple of options.
Yeah, that's kind of the issue. I feel like Path is actually best served when you're using it alongside a Marnie or alongside a Reset Stamp in the later stages. In the early stages, it basically just blocks a Fog Crystal. It means that you're not able to search out Shadow Rider. And in the grand scheme of things, because of how Azul's hand is mapped out, it's not going to phase him too much at all. The one thing Azul's missing right now is a switch out once again. And that could be a little bit awkward for him. You obviously open up your abilities if you use the Marshadow already in hand, and you get 2 more draws here from Underworld Door. You could also save your communication for Crobat plays as well. You may be seeing that actually here, where he just clutches onto some cards and then goes digging after the Underworld Door, because I think you really want to get some setup damage on Zach's Ice Rider here.
Oh, absolutely. You want to be building towards those KOs as fast as you can. We saw that last game, and it's what's weird. Like, if I'm Azul, I'm thinking, well, I won game 1. Oh, but you know what? That was on a bit of an improbable comeback. There were a couple of one-offs I used to make that happen. And then I lost game 2, but having said that, I only really lost game 2 because that top deck's boss's orders, which was really improbable. So with this matchup being so back and forth, you know, both games have really been on a knife edge so far. Like you say, you need to get just a little bit of setup damage. You don't want to be leaving anything to chance. We've seen both games so far come down right to the very end with improbable draws. You would really love to avoid that if you could. So grab that Crobat V, play the Marshadow, get rid of Path to the Peak. You can draw 5 cards here with Marshadow, which is pretty good, to be honest, from a Crobat. So yeah, I like this quite a lot. And we even see a switch, so life is good.
But he's missing the psychic energy though, so life's not good. He didn't swap crystal for an energy card. He was trying to maximize his Crobat draws. What he could have done was, of course, Marshadow first, then use your Underworld Door, then Crobat. But he was trying to maximize, and he thought, I have so many outs to psychic energy. This won't be a problem. Unfortunate for Azul that it doesn't come together here. And Zach can continue to use that one Shady Dealings now. I think you have to go for your research here and really just go fishing.
I just assumed Azul had the energy, I'm going to be honest with you, because he plays so many and Fog Crystals and all of that, but I missed it, and unfortunately, that was a big deal. Zach, as it's fairly predictable play, go for that Professor's Research, gets you the most number of cards, and now we've got a level ball to go and grab a Drizzile. So now we have another Evolution and any trainer card Zach wants, and it's probably going to have to be Capacious Bucket, yeah. It's got to be.
Got to be Bucket so that he can actually launch an attack this turn. He could once again just go for the Ride of the High King because there's still the GX attack open for Azul here. Or if he wants to just go ahead and reach the knockout, that's also possible. The Alchemy is very weak. It only has 170 hit points, I believe. So thanks to the 40 prep damage that Zach did on the previous turn, you can find an easy route to take a knockout here.
Yeah, and that's quite nice. Anytime you can get an easier knockout where you're not having to discard both those energy and do the full 250, that is absolutely huge. So Rider the High King here will do 130, which is absolutely perfect. And you've mentioned a couple of times during the broadcast so far, Joe, those little pokes, which might not be a huge amount of damage, but actually that poke for 40 on the previous turn set up that KO perfectly. And now, I mean, Zach doesn't have to KO 2 V Maxes. He can KO 2 Pokemon V, or if there aren't 2 V available, a V Max and a V. So that gives him an easier route to victory because those V Maxes are generally out of range of a one-hit KO.
Yeah, and the hope is that obviously this Crobat sticking around. Maybe Azul doesn't even evolve his benched Shadow Rider right now if he's not able to draw into more VMAXs. We'll see what he can do though, but he's finally getting that train rolling with a bunch of Psychic Energy now all coming up.
No, absolutely. Now here, Azul is not hurting for energy at all. Could have done with a bit more of this last turn. 3 energy in hand and a Fog Crystal. It's unusual for Azul to be missing energy, but unfortunately that last turn really was impactful. We are going to see a Max Geist, it looks like here. There are... Did he use all of his Underworld doors?
Yeah, he's only had 2 Underworld doors to work with here. So I think he's all good. I think... The one way that I'm seeing him come back now, outside of some reset stamp plays, is the potential to actually use the Miraculous Duo GX attack. If you allow Zach to hit into one of your VMAXs, and then you just go digging for your Mewtwo next turn and Underworld Door 3 times onto it. I know we're asking for a lot here, but that could be a way that you basically steal a turn back from Zach next turn.
Yeah, completely heals all of your Pokemon while doing decent damage. That would get the KO on the Ice Rider, and it's a play that you never really expect to see because everybody thinks of Mewtwo and Mew for the perfection ability copying all of those attacks, but actually it's one GX attack. It has no regular attacks, but his one GX attack can be big. Zach is preparing for this. He's got a Sobble down. He's evolved his Ice Rider into a VMAX, got an energy onto it, and it looks like we're seeing a Boss's Orders here, bringing up that unevolved Shadow Rider, which is going to be an easy 2 prizes with Max Lance. And you called it yourself, Joe. If he doesn't evolve that, and he hasn't, Zach can get an easy KO. And now Zach doesn't even need to care about those VMAXs. Zach can just KO that Crobat for the win.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice choice from Zach. He didn't have many other options in hand, but I think just putting your path as an energy plus a Boss's Orders is very reasonable, especially because you can find all of that with 1 Shady Dealings in Teleon. So he's put himself, once again, 1 attack away here. So Azul's going to have to try and find a way to deny Zach all over again. It could be some Trevnoir action, potentially, but I think you want to take the KO here, and Trevnoir is just 10 damage short of doing really what you want to with it right now. We'll see if he actually wants to go a long way around with Trevenant and Dusknoir.
It is an awkward one, like you say. A single Inteleon will get a Capacious Bucket and a Boss's Orders, and that is all that's going to be necessary to get the win. So we do have 2 Underworld Door available, and it looks like Azul is very much going the Trevenant route here. We see the first Underworld Door, we see the second Underworld Door, there's an energy in hand to manually attach, another energy in hand, we even see an Air Balloon for the easy retreat. So Azul is not missing much energy here. It's not a KO, but actually it's going to get 2 of the free cards out of Zach's hand, leaves him with just a Sobble in hand, and his top deck is an Energy, which is close but not close enough, unfortunately. So Azul, now he is in a good position, and I mean, there's a lot of energy. He's going to be building up to one-hit KOs, and maybe we could even see Alchemy soon?
Yeah, possibly. I think he's a little bit behind for the Alchemy play, but how many energies do we have in board right now for Azul? Is that 8, I think?
I think it's 8.
I think you have to attach to the benched Ice Rider every time here.
Oh, yeah.
If you attach active, I mean, it's actually a tough one, because if Zach expects Azul to actually come over the top on the benched Ice Rider, maybe you're just putting yourself in top deck of exactly Inteleon as your win condition. That's the reason why you would attach to the active. But that really does force us all to have the perfect hand. Now, we know that he's actually really close, and it's going to be quite easy pickings for Azul to actually go for this play. I think he'll always use boss's orders now, and I think Azul basically just locks down this game from here.
Yeah, he's put himself in a really good position. Zach, once again, is so close to victory. He's set up his board beautifully. If he gets a Drizzle or something like a Level Ball, he's got it. If he gets an Inteleon, he's got it. But unfortunately, he's not won the game yet, and Azul might not have actually taken a KO yet, but what he has got is a lot of energy on the field, a boss's orders in hand. There we see the boss's orders, and this is what you were saying about the energy attachment, Joe. As much as I don't like putting energy on a Pokemon that's almost KO'd, if you put it all on one Pokemon, you're essentially just drawing a giant target onto that Ice Rider Calyrex, and that is exactly what Azul's gone for. He's got a Dedenne to draw more cards as well, draws even more energy, and this is going badly for Zach.
Yeah, I think that's enough for us to actually get the KO here. Does he? Yeah, he has manual attachment still to go, so that will be the 11th energy coming into play, which does get the KO. Azul's just going to play as many cards as possible now to play around the likes of Marnie and Reset Stamp, so he can just simply manually attach and then take a huge knockout. As you said, it's really unintuitive to attach the water energy to your heavily damaged Ice Rider, but I think that opens up the exact top deck of Inteleon and Incense, and that's really the only way Zach wins. If he was ready to sit and think a little bit longer about that play, there's actually no method that he can win otherwise.
No, because now we're back in that situation that we've talked about a couple of times. Zach can only win by playing an Energy and a Melanie and a boss's orders. And the giant problem with that is, although Lieutenant Surge's strategy is in the format, it's not in Zach's deck, doesn't really fit in Zach's deck. There's not going to be a double supporter turn. So unfortunately, Zach just drops a well-played, concedes a game, and Zach is eliminated from the tournament, and Azul will be carrying on through the loser's bracket.
Yeah, Capacious Bucket not getting the job done there. I think he had really limited draws to actually win the game. You could have potentially just sent up a Sobble and just made Azul have it, but he was so far to the bottom of his deck that I think Zach saw the writing on the wall there. It was just a matter of time for Azul to finally get those last outs to close out the win. Really impressive stuff. Azul was happy going behind, and we've seen it so many times from Azul, actually. He's definitely someone who likes to use Reset Stamp on his side and really take control of the board rather than necessarily the prize race, and he found a really great route here to just shut down all of Zach's options in those later stages of the game.
Absolutely. I mean, both of Azul's wins came from behind. They were both awkward games where it was just not really going well enough, but we see the options, and it really is, it's Underworld Door. We don't often see really good Pokemon that have a great ability and a good attack. But Shadow Rider Calyrex has it. We also generally, the two best abilities in the game tend to be attaching extra energy or drawing cards. And Underworld Door does both. I think Kyle made the same point in yesterday's broadcast. It's such a good ability, and we see when these Shadow Rider decks get going, they're just attaching so much energy. Most decks do not casually get 8 energy on the field, but that's what we were seeing from Azul there.
Yeah, we went all the way up to 11. That's a really huge amount of energy. That's almost all of Azul's energy. He only plays 13 copies. So yeah, did really well to use all of them effectively, spread them around some of the higher hit point targets that he has, so that none of those energies go to waste, and it really meant that he was able to mount an amazing comeback in that third game.
Yeah, congratulations